Why do I have such a problem? Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Jackie, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, can I get a roll call, please? Let me put your mic on. Bear with me here. Okay, thank you.
Berkowitz,
Here.
Butler,
Here.
Ortiz, Oxley,
Yes.
Trainier,
Present.
Winfrey, Newquist.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, approval of minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from May 6th?
Motion, Chenier. Second, Berkowitz.
Roll call?
Berkowitz,
Yes.
Butler, Oxley,
Yes.
Trainier,
Yes.
Newquist.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Old business. We have an update on county grants. Do we actually have an update or is it just open for questions? Okay, if nobody has any questions or updates, we'll move on to the River Valley Detention Center presentation. Thanks for coming back, you guys. And let me turn on those mics. Okay, do you want to just start by updating us a little bit from our last meeting and then we'll open up for questions?
Sure. There was a PowerPoint. It's very short and sweet. I know that the question was the cost per day per resident, so we have that for you. And then Chris has a little bit more to expand upon for that for you. So I have a graph on that for you. And for what I have here listed is this cost per day per resident is for fiscal year 24. And that is with including all of the previous years per diem rates. So you can see that we had the $200 per diem, a $225 per diem, and if we increase it to $250 per diem, and you can see with the projections. So for 2024 is that blue one, and that stayed steady, and that would have been at 360, just about 365 per day. And our average resident was 21. So that would have been all for fiscal year 24. That was the cost per day per resident with 21 residents at the average. And then you can see at the $200 per diem, it dropped down to 336. And then if we increased it, you can see increasing it each up $25, it decreases it as we increase the additional residents that we intend to add. And that was just strictly with the 2024 residents that we had.
I think we've got a couple questions
course.
on this. I know I do. Jackie, what are you, 13? Hold on a sec. Where are you on here? Oh, there we go. Okay, go ahead.
This was a confusing chart to me.
Yeah.
So you gave a little more explanation saying that at 21 average residents, the cost was 364. Your different per diem rates, what was our per diem rate in 2024?
2024 was 225.
Okay, so you show that, but you show a lower per diem rate and I didn't understand why. And then you show the 250.
If
and
we increased it to 250 that was just showing what the average of what we had last year. So I don't have what we have this year since we're.
No,
currently in-
that part I understood.
Sure.
There was just no explanation for why 200, 225 and 250. And I didn't remember what our actual per diem was.
Sure.
So that first column then isn't the real actual cost then, because if we did charge the 225 per diem last year, then last year's cost should have been that middle figure, the kind of greenish one, because that's the per diem that we charge. So why do you have 364? And I'll just.
Those are with additional residents that we would add when we
Oh.
increase with additional counties that we would bring in. That was the discussion that we had
Yeah.
last time.
I understand you're trying to give us a lot of data and it's just, it wasn't simple to follow.
So is 364 our actual cost?
Yeah.
From last year with the average number that we had, yes, with
Okay.
21 residents.
Does that include fixed and variable costs? Like, for example, it costs the same to heat the building, whether there's one person there or 30 people
No,
there.
so that was just strictly with the River Valley detention budget. That was not with maintenance budget.
Okay, so that's really variable cost then. Maintenance would be a separate,
Correct.
okay. And then,
And medical's also separate.
and then your,
Medical's included.
Medical.
Oh,
Medical's included.
so then your 336, 329 and 322 would be based on what we're charging to bring in other residents. I'm a little confused when you say the per diems 225, 250. Is that what we are charging?
Correct. For out-of-county youth.
Okay,
Can I piggyback on that? Okay, so,
go ahead and then Dan.
so the number that you have in the columns, so for 3 additional residents, for, I think the second column is the $200 per diem, you have $336.58. So that number, is that the total cost per resident? Or is it the cost after you get that $200 per diem? So is the
That's
cost,
not including the $200 per diem because we don't see that money.
you don't see that money?
No.
Who does?
It goes straight to the county general fund.
then how does the
Okay.
cost per day change?
I think
Okay.
I think there might be a little bit of confusion.
Yeah.
Yes, that is, in essence, if I can give just a real general piece, if we add an additional youth to the detention center, we admit 1 per day extra. The cost to the county is reduced by about $70,000 a year. So that is actually correct. Even though we don't see that money in our budget, it's reduced, the county's expense is reduced.
Okay, but so $336.58 is the absolute total cost. And then
No.
No.
364 is.
you said, well, that number at the top of the column is the cost per diem. And then whatever we receive would reimburse us towards that cost. So my question is if, and this gets back to the other counties, this is specific to the outside counties. If we know that it costs us $336 per day, why wouldn't we just charge what it costs us? Why? Okay, so right now we're subsidizing those other counties a little bit. And I understand you said they may have a choice of where they want to take their people. However, I thought I also heard that there are restricted choices. There aren't a whole lot of choices out there. So my question is, if there aren't a lot of choices out there and we have a good product, can we charge more towards what it really costs us? So our taxpayers aren't subsidizing that. And at the end of the day, you know, we're providing better services and we're doing what we need to do. I think, you know, if I'm the consumer, I'm those other counties, and I can't remember which ones they were. I wrote them down, but
Decals.
I'm gonna look at Will County and I'm gonna say, oh, well, it may cost us a little bit more, but I know they're gonna take good care of, they're gonna provide these services. So is that an option? Is it an option to consider, hey, this is the cost and this is what it costs Will County and this is what we're going to charge an outside county?
If I may. So it does not, when we add a youth to the detention center, our cost does not go up by $336 that day. Our costs will go up, I think, potentially $22 for food. And let me explain it this way. Our medical contract is set for up to a certain level of kids. I think it's 83 kids.
Yes.
So we don't incur, the county does not incur a dime for having another youth in except to feed them. And so the food contract is set up with, you know, and I believe I mentioned this before, like 20 to 25, 26 to 30, 31 to 35. And the price per meal then drops significantly because it's not real cost effective for the food vendors to produce food for like 25 kids. So when it's kind of hard to say, to work through this, but if, because we're kind of dealing with two different things. We're not really subsidizing anybody because we're bringing them in, incurring, like I said, the $22 cost for meals. And the other incremental costs, I mean, I don't, our heat's not going to go up. Our water usage is going to go up maybe a tiny bit. The use of, you know, the use of products that, you know, soaps or even the damage to clothing that's being washed or whatever. Those things, it's not a significant cost. So in essence, our cost by bringing other county kids in, it subsidizes our kids' costs. That's really what it amounts to. Bringing more in reduces the cost that we pay for our own kids. So it's like a reverse subsidized. Does that make sense?
It does, but this
Well,
chart
wait.
doesn't show that.
We've
So-
both-
so-
people
yeah.
have been waiting.
So chart was trying to be as honest as possible with the actual costs. This was the costs.
Okay.
And if we added kids, this is what the cost would
So-
have been.
So we 100% believe she's being honest, okay? But we're having trouble getting from 225 to 329. So let me ask you a question, because I haven't heard the answer yet clearly. So it's 225 per day, okay? And you get one additional one, still 225. You get two additional ones, still 225. When you go to three, you're at 329 a day for the extra one. Is that what that means?
No,
Three additional residents, 329? I don't understand how you're getting from 225 a day and then it goes to 329. I'm not understanding the math that is involved there. That's all. I didn't know if once you get to three, it goes to 329 because it bumps up your population and you new guards. I don't know, but how does that happen? I just having a hard time processing it, you know?
So so in essence, adding three additional residents reduces the cost to the county by about 210,000, or about, let's say, between 200 and 210,000 at $200 per diem. And I think that's what she's trying to demonstrate. Then at 225, it drops, and at 250. In essence, if we just multiply 200 by 365, that tells you the dollars that are coming in.
So you're saying that if you have one person, it's 225, but if you have three people, it's 329?
No, by bringing people in at 225, it reduces the overall costs to the county by bringing revenue in. It doesn't, what it's demonstrating is that bringing other people in reduces the daily cost for the kids that are in the detention center.
So I just want to clarify, and then David, I'll let you go ahead if you're done. So what you're saying on this chart is, let's look at that first three additional residents. You're saying our cost per day right now, and this is not including, you know, maintenance costs, is $364.97. If we bring in three extra residents and we charge $200, we charge their counties
correct.
$200 per day.
Per
That
kid.
brings out per kid, that
Yes.
brings our cost down to our cost per bed down to $336.58.
Correct.
If we charge 225, it brings it down to 329. If we charge 250, it brings it down to 322.
Correct.
Okay, and that's the overall cost per bed. I mean, and so, yeah, so, okay, I think I understand it. Thank you. All right, David,
Okay,
go
along
ahead.
with-
Sorry, thanks for your patience.
That's fine. Along with what Jackie's saying. So you're budgeting 365 for the year per student.
In essence, we took total costs.
Right, your
We
total
took our
costs are
total costs and
365.
divided that by the
So why
actual-
would we be charging an out of county person 225? Because, and if I'm correct, DeKalb doesn't have a center.
Correct.
So they've saved, let's just say, $30 million by building a center, not building a center. So they should be paying us what it costs at the 365 number plus 10% or something like that. Our taxpayers should not be incurring costs, even though by bringing more in, because the same food between 20 and 25 and the step program we have for food and medical, I understand. But why would we be subsidizing other counties? They should be subsidizing
We're
us.
not. They actually, their presence in our building is subsidizing our kids.
Well,
Their presence
how
is
so?
reducing.
If you've got $365 on that chart and you bring in students at 250, 225 or 200, it lowers it to 336. Okay, so
Right.
we're $28 difference. Where's it come from? We make it up.
No. I think we're just, we're not connecting here.
No, we're not.
Well, at the end of the year, we have, our budget exists whether we've detained 15 kids per day or 30 kids per day.
Right.
Or
We
no
have Fixed
kids.
cost
No
budget
kids.
of $365 per kid, per student.
Well,
Whatever you want.
that's not actually correct because it's variable on the number of kids that are in the building. So what I'm saying is if we increase the number of kids in the building, our cost per day drops.
So does your budget vary monthly?
Yeah, I mean, we look at it at the end of the day, at the end of the year, and it's
So-
based on, but
So how do you
the
make?
fixed
the budget
cost is
then?
like medical. The fixed costs are like,
Medical, food, employees, heat.
food is not a fixed cost.
Well, it varies, right?
Yeah.
But you've got a pattern of variation.
Right,
But
again,
Your electric, your gas. all that.
fairly stable. I mean,
Very stable cost.
Right.
Water changes, I
But
understand.
so I guess what we're trying to say is if we don't have anybody in, we don't add anybody, it costs the taxpayers $364.97 per kid.
Exactly.
If we bring,
So why would we charge another county 225 if it's charging us 365?
because that lowers the cost that for our kids. We're not incurring any new costs except for the meals, in essence. We don't
Numbers
incur.
don't lie, and this just doesn't make any
I'm
sense.
sorry, I didn't hear you.
Numbers don't lie. This makes no sense. If you're saying you're budgeting $364.97 a year per student, per child, whatever you want to call them, and we're only charging $225, who's making up the difference in that? And I understand by more people, it changes our variable, but you're still at the 365 number.
We're not budgeting for $364.97 per day. We're budgeting, the budget is what we've requested based on all of our needs, through the budget process. That number is an actual number of what it costs the taxpayers in fiscal year 24 to house the kids that we housed.
365.
Correct. If we
Okay.
bring more kids in, we've not incurred a higher cost. We've actually reduced the cost per bed that year. We're not incurring anymore. We're actually reducing the amount of money that the taxpayers expend.
Totally understand your point, but I'm saying, why are we, if we're averaging 365 or 336, let's go to 329. Why are we only charging them 225?
We also have to.
That's 100 and-
But we're not, we're not incurring $225 or $365 worth of costs for that kid. I think that's what we're trying to explain. We're not incurring 322 or 317. We're incurring about $25 per day for these kids.
So I have a,
Really, go ahead, yeah.
thank you, Sherry. So for that $336 or that number at the top of the column, does that include the cost for the facility, the tangible assets that these participants are using, beds? You've
Yes.
got the
Yes.
building, and
So,
everything,
Separate from the building, like the
that's
bed-
included
the
in this
beds,
cost.
uniforms, soaps, yes.
Okay,
Food.
but it doesn't include, that's a capital expense and we have to pay, the county has to, well, they constructed the building initially, but we have to pay for maintenance, renovations. That's a tangible cost. And it's paid by the county. Is any portion of that cost reflected in that number?
It is not.
Okay, and second question. So right now, that means that cost is primarily being paid by the Will County taxpayer. Because the Will County taxpayer funds Will County government. Second question, judicial services. So when Kendall or Kankakee or DeKalb bring a participant here, and I'm saying participant, I'm not sure.
Resident.
Resident, thank you. When they, we accept a new resident, they will require judicial services, hearings and things like that. Is that provided by the Will County Judicial?
No.
It isn't. So they don't come to our courthouse?
No.
They don't? Okay, so they're just housed there?
Correct.
And then when they have something like that, they come and pick them up on a bus or something?
They have their own transport.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so our only cost then is to house that individual.
Correct.
Okay, so the gap I see here is that we have a substantial cost because that's quite a bit of money. Even by expanding it to 6 additional residents, that is a lot of money. And in addition to that, we've got the cost that the Will County taxpayer is absorbing for the building, the structure that we're housing them in. So again, I would go back to my initial point where I feel that if Will County has something that's very valuable to these other counties, they could take a $50 million bond out themselves and build their own detention facility. But obviously, this is much more profitable for them to come to us. So at the end of the day, our responsibility is to the Will County taxpayer. And I think these per diems, we need to just, it should be the cost per day. Now,
We'll
You-
have Jackie and then Dan.
it should at least be the cost per day, because at the end of the day, you know, we're being very generous to not charge them appropriately. I mean, yeah, there's a risk that they could go somewhere else, but it isn't fair for us to subsidize this, especially when, you know, we're addressing our residents and our taxpayers. So I would say, and I don't know where this has to go from there, that I'd like the discussion to move forward to actually charging the actual per diem rate. Thank you.
Jackie and then Dan and then Dustin.
Okay, I think after all these conversations and questions, I kind of understand the point you're trying to make with that chart and with those numbers, and it's taken me a while to get
Sorry.
there. We have these fixed costs, and I don't know how many residents we had in the facility last year.
Sure.
But we're going to pay those costs whether there are 10 kids or 15 kids from our county. That's our costs. And that particular year, it worked out to 364. This year, if we don't have a lot of residents there, it might jump up to 564, 864, 964, if we only have a few residents there, which I know at times has been the case. So I think what you're trying to do is come up with a system that helps us reduce our costs, but keeps us competitive with other counties that also can provide this service. I think we start at the 250, that's your higher number. I think we try really hard to get to 6 residents, maybe even 7 from another county, because then that would probably make us break even with our actual costs. And if this fails, you know, next year we raise it to 300 or whatever number, but we're marketing something, and if we price ourselves out of the market, we won't get any customers. We won't get any clients. And the only time I felt as a business owner that I wanted to price myself out of the market was when I didn't want to service that client. I owned a residential cleaning business for 19 years. If we went to your house and we gave you an estimate and we looked at how filthy it was and we didn't want you as a customer, your price was twice as much as anybody else. And, you know, if we underpriced you, which did happen, we would adjust that price going forward. And I think we could do that as a county. So I know you couldn't give us an actual of how many people we might get extra. I think 6 is probably being conservative because I think you were talking to
Yes,
like
it-
3
it
different
is.
counties. So I mean, I would be willing to go with the 250 and then weigh in again on this maybe in 6 months. I don't think there's a timeline. I don't think we have to wait a year. I
Be-
think we could change the rate at any point.
Before we move on
Yeah.
to Dan, those are good points. I just want to remind people that I believe the reason why we're having this conversation is because we have to pick one of 3 alternatives.
Correct.
Either do away with the facility and, you know, move our kids to other facilities, or move to the adult detention center, or make the modifications needed to keep the juvenile detention center compliant. I mean, all these conversations about rates and everything, it's a good conversation to have, and it certainly has a bearing, but it's not really fundamentally the question that we got to decide here.
Oh, well, I will just say for the record, for me, I want to keep our facility. Our county is big enough. It takes an hour to drive from one side to the other. I don't want to send our kids somewhere else. And I think our taxpayers should absorb that cost. I feel that. And
Okay.
that's my vote. I want to stay with our facility in our county. I've heard enough about the adult detention facility to kind of make me understand that's not really a viable option. I want to keep our facility. I want to get it up to snuff. And I want to get other counties' residents coming to us. And I want to start at 250. So that's me.
Dan, then Destiny.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like capacity and occupancy is a big deciding factor on what decision to make. So it kind of does relate, because if you have less occupants at a higher amount and it's still cheaper than having a bigger facility, you know, then that is going to be affecting that decision. So thanks for that explanation. I think it helped me to understand better what. So I just had one other question. And honestly, I know it might feel like you're being put, you know, to the question and everything's against you, but really it's just wanting to understand exactly what we're looking at. So is there any other contributions from the state or anything that come into this factor from outside occupants in your facility?
So we are in discussion with the Administrative Office of Illinois Courts to, I think we've stated before, we've requested new positions. And that would help us to supervise more kids. That salary would be then reimbursed by the state. And then the county would be responsible for the benefits. We would offset that by, our goal would be to enter into agreements with counties that we've been discussing the potential, and this is with the state, of mandatory beds. So they would buy the beds whether they were occupied or not. And that's kind of it's a novel way of looking at it. So that would be a guaranteed revenue stream in, and we would have to accept residents from those counties if they contacted us. And that's one of the thoughts that are out there. Can I address one thing that you said, and I really appreciate what you kind of opened the door. Our building's 102 beds. We're not utilizing that space. We recognize that we could house about, I think, 83 kids. That's, the state kind of recognizes us, even though we're not staffed for that level, including benefits, some, you know, utilities costs, not capital. If we were to house about 83 kids, the cost to the county per bed would drop to somewhere between $100 and $150, maybe $110 per day. So that's kind of what we're talking about. It's not within that budget, we would still be within our budget, but the cost, because we'd have more kids, would be reduced. We would be subsidizing our kids because that money would come into the county and the county would have that money. Does that kind of make sense? You'd ask for.
It does, it
I-
does, and you know,
But if I
we'd
told
have to
you that-
depend on more criminals or.
Yeah, so-
Kind of.
What, but
Break
the
even.
question came up about what is the absolute daily cost per day? And there's ways to present it that are, again, Shannon wanted to be honest with what that cost was. If we said the cost per day based on their bed space was $110, we wouldn't be having that discussion, but we're not anywhere near that, right? So I think that the more information is better. And that's what.
So you said that there's 89 or how many?
80, there's 102 beds, but I think the state recognizes 83 of those.
83 and there's 30 occupants, or how many occupants are in there?
The average for fiscal year 24 was 21.
21. Okay. Okay. And then, you know, I'm kind of getting the idea how this works, but how many residents does it take to break even at 225?
I'm not a mathematician. Sorry.
Oh, let me turn your mic on, Jackie. Where are you? Sorry about that. There
That's
you go.
okay. Just looking at where it says 6 additional residents and I'll go with the 225, it'd be $319. If you made that, like, say, 12 additional residents, you'd probably be down below 225. If we ever managed to get to the 83, the funds coming in at 225 or 250 would pay for the whole damn thing. And that's the outside funds coming in.
Yeah.
You know, given that we only had 21 of our own residents in.
So when you say, so that would be 15 added to the, I'm sorry, 20,
21. was the
21,
average.
21, so at 36 about
Sure.
roughly, we would break even as far as costs.
I don't want to guarantee you that.
But I mean, is that the
would
way it
be
would work?
Good.
Is there,
Basically.
is there any way that we would flip that table and they would be higher, and then as you got closer to the 36, it would break even and the cost could go down for them?
I would never suggest to reduce
Mm-mm.
the per diem to that level. I don't want to say never, you know what? I'm never not going to say, I'm never going to say never.
I get it. We
I
don't-
understand
don't-
where you're coming from.
Government doesn't reduce fees.
Well,
But
some of the government doesn't,
But
some
to
of the
be-
government
to be
does.
ultra competitive, I understand where you're coming from, to be ultra competitive. Yeah, I mean, could you theoretically put people out of business? I mean, we would have to take a long, hard look at that. Yes, I
Question where the balance
Wait,
point.
Jesse's next, sorry.
wouldn't.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo Board Member Trainier's thoughts and express my opinion on where I think we should go moving forward with the decisions that we need to make. I think it's probably the best idea to just invest in fixing up our juvenile detention center as it is. I don't think the other options are going to be saving us more money than this option would. And I really appreciate you guys putting this together because like other board members, I was a little bit confused, but as the
Sorry.
questions came, no, you guys did a great job with answering questions. I see what you guys are doing here. Like you're saying, it is a little bit confusing to understand, but I'm understanding that we're paying the 365 anyways, right? We're paying that. So it's better for us to stay competitive because if we drive ourselves outside of the market, we're not going to be helping us at all. We want these other kids to come in here so that we can lower the costs to our Will County residents. So I think that we should definitely move forward like Ms. Trainier said with maybe 250. My personal opinion would be we go with the 200 just so that we can be more competitive and try to get more people and lower our costs. And then maybe we can revisit raising the cost a little bit. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. Thank you guys.
Thank you. So, Mary, I'm not sure where we need to go with this, but are we in general agreement that we need to keep the juvenile detention facility and make the upgrades needed to maintain compliance.
If my memory.
believe-
Let me turn you on. Or,
I-
I hate this thing.
Uh,
Okay, go ahead.
So if my memory serves me correctly, staying in the facility was our cheapest option,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm for that.
Julie and then David.
Thank you.
I believe because that the youth should not be mixed with the adult population. It's for their safety, our staff safety. It makes sense that the program is working and you believe that's the best scenario. So I want to support you in that. I think that is the best scenario. Where does it go from here? So Shannon and Chris came forward again, Mary, to discuss this with us. What is the next step for them?
Well, let David speak first, Mary, and then if you would come up and let us know. Go ahead.
I
David.
would think the next step is make a motion to approve it at this, keeping it open and recommend a
Yeah,
cost factor.
I'm not sure if
goes
we
county
need
board.
to do that or if we just,
Well, the recommendation has to come out of this committee, go to county board.
yeah. Okay, Mary, can you let us know?
So I do think you have to move a recommendation forward.
Okay.
And you'll have to at some point give direction to the county executive what you would like her to do, which would probably be exploring what sort of modifications we need to make to the River Valley Detention Center to bring it up to the proper code or the requirements from the AOIC, to make sure that we are in full compliance. So, and that would be up to her to get the proposals and bring forward, a bid or whatever to move forward with that.
So,
So that's on here.
yeah, so it's sufficient to make a motion to redirect the county executive to explore making the modifications required for compliance, correct? I mean, is it that?
Well, you'll ultimately move it forward to county board.
Oh,
County
yeah.
board would have to be the entity to make that, to give that direction to the county
Okay.
executive.
Okay, Jackie, go ahead.
And the things that they have asked for, they've been very clear. It's the body scanners.
I have a quote in there.
Yeah, and then you have the price in here. I just wondered what steamer and cooks meant, but looks like some kitchen upgrades for $24,000. And then there is the photo here of the no contact visitation stuff. Is this the way it looks right now?
Yes.
Okay, so it is no contact at the moment. Do we have to remove that? That's what I thought.
Yes, so we're in discussion with the architect about what we can do for that, so we were waiting to hear back from them. But I do have the quote from the company for the body scanners, and that would include shipping, delivery, installation, training, and warranty. Everything is included, and that includes 2 body scanners. So if we just needed the one, I could get the quote for the one.
No, my understanding is the county executive does have those figures and we could actually just move this forward to executive committee this month. I think we're not too late. That's next week, right? So we
All
can
right.
move it forward to there and make the directive to the
The
county.
steamer
executive.
was fixed by someone, a contractor, so it was much cheaper than the 23. So
Oh, okay. Well,
Nice.
what
That
does
was-
the cooks mean? Is that
that was
something?
the company. That was the company.
Okay, I didn't quite understand that, but yeah, I mean, I think.
Are
we
you
should move
making
it-
that
I'll make a
motion?
motion to move this forward to the
Yeah.
executive committee.
Hold on a second, Dan, I didn't see you,
I can make
sorry.
a motion, but-
Yeah, but
I have a,
I would make a motion or make a recommendation that she only got to the first page of her presentation, that we listen to the rest of it.
Oh.
And then we actually, because I'm all for staying there. I might not be all for the budget or everything it includes. Okay, I'd like to hear the rest of it.
Well,
you sure?
and just to
This was the
Dan,
money part, right?
Dan,
Make a motion.
we're not approving the budget at this time. I mean,
Okay.
we're basically moving this forward to executive to be added to the.
I just
county
wanted
board
to finish
agenda.
listening to the
Yeah.
presentation about the money part.
I agree, I agree.
This just shows our revenue that we have to date from December 24 to April of this year. And it shows the monthly average that we have from the other counties, that's different counties that we have coming in, DeKalb and then Kankakee. So we have the to-date revenue, we have the monthly average, and then we have what is the projected revenue for fiscal year 25. But that is with the current per diem that has not changed yet. So that is what is projected to come in this year. That is not with adding any residents because that could fluctuate because Kankakee could bring in 10 residents at a month. So that is just what we currently have with the projections.
Shannon, what is your timeline? What are your critical dates? I think we need to put that into perspective. So when we move this forward, we get it done in a timely manner.
Sure. For me, the body scanners would be most important, and I think that would be something that could be done the quickest. I understand that any physical upgrades would take time and a bid process and anything like that if that was necessary. So I understand that could take time.
Hold on,
yes.
go ahead. Oh,
Okay.
were you done?
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay,
that's fine.
go ahead, Jackie.
I would just say we're already behind. We are out of compliance. We've been out of
Yep.
compliance for well over a year, maybe
Yes.
longer. Somebody out there shaking their head. We need to move along. So I will again make my motion to move this forward to the executive committee. Do I have a second?
Second, Ortiz.
I just have one discussion point. Rashawn, do you have anything to add about this from the financial standpoint? Since you're here, I figured I'd put you on the spot.
Of course. The only thing I would add, we're in the budget planning process, so any capital request, and I'm sure Chris and Shannon may have added some of those items that are on that list in their budget request.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, Jackie made a motion. Do we have a second?
Chuck, are we able to do
Ortiz.
that? Add it
All
to
right.
executive.
Can we get a roll call?
So will this motion include a cost factor that we're recommending or?
It's, it's going to the executive committee for that committee to,
Oh, Joe, hold on. Let
Decide
me,
and we have the chairman here from.
go ahead.
Thank you, Sherry. I believe I believe the financial figures are already, have been
Yes.
given.
County executive. head.
County executive has them, so executive committee will have the final numbers. And we should be able to move forward next week. Okay? Thank you.
I just want to make sure
Mm-hmm.
it gets added to the agenda because it's not on it for us. Whatever information the county executive has, I'd like to make sure that it's attached to this item, so, because we can't see it right now.
I think we
Thank
got
you.
that at an earlier meeting, actually.
did.
but- Right.
Go on the
can
agenda.
ask
Are-
to-
Do you have it on your agenda?
Not this, not this.
Well,
one.
that's-
We had
that's
it
my
on.
point.
I think it's in the minutes
Yeah.
actually where they discussed what the body scanners were gonna
So,
cost.
Change my graph though?
Yeah, you have.
I got time to change the graph?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, any more questions, comments, or can we go ahead with the roll call?
Berkowitz,
Yes.
Butler. Ortiz. Yes. Axley,
Yes.
Rainier,
Yes.
Newquist.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much, and we really appreciate the information. Okay, no other old business unless somebody has something I don't know about. New business, transferring appropriations within various county budgets. Can I get a,
Second, Ortiz.
Previous.
Second. What was I?
all right, all in favor? Opposed? All right, motion passes. Appropriating funds in the coroner's budget. From what I understand, this is a grant that they received that we have to appropriate.
Motion, Ortiz.
Thank you.
Previous Oxley.
Second, Berkowitz.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Number 3, declaring vehicles as surplus and authorizing disposal.
Second, Ortiz.
Previous.
Movies?
Second, Berkowitz.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. transfer of funds. We just needed to transfer some funds from various departments. Does anybody, well, I need a motion first.
Second Ortiz.
Any discussion or questions about this? It's basically for the health department.
Second Berkowitz.
All right, all in favor? Opposed? Right, motion passes. And appropriating grant funds in the health department budget.
Second Ortiz.
Do I get a previous?
Second Berkowitz.
All in favor? Opposed? All right, motion passes. I don't have any other new business. Is there any public comment? Public comment? One more time for public comment? No public comment. Announcements, reports by the chair. I have none, except that our next meeting is scheduled for July 1st, 2025. We don't need an executive session, so I will take a motion for adjournment.
Second Ortiz.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, guys. Good.